Okay, friends, so we're going to be using charcoal pencils to draw our African elephants. The first thing we're going to do is use a regular pencil, though, to get the outline of our elephant, but I'm going to use a Sharpie in the video just so that you can see where the lines are. We're going to start with this outside edge of the trunk. And think about what we learned about with the negative space. When you're drawing this, think about how much space is in the background. So I'm going to come in at the top, not quite halfway, a little bit closer to the edge, so about right here. I'll do a little dot so you can see where to start your pencil. And it's going to curve. Notice I have my paper the long way, portrait style. It's going to curve a little bit out, and it's going to follow along the edge of that paper and come all the way down. Okay. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to start the ear. So that's going to come from the top corner. We're going to come down a little bit, and we're going to curve out. And the ear can be a little bumpy. And then it's going to come down until you get a little bit below the halfway of the edge here. So if I find the halfway on this edge and I come down a little bit, that's where my ear should kind of fall. Perfect. I'm going to come from the ear a little bit, come in, and I'm going to draw a line, which will eventually be my leg. All right, so then now that we have that done, we're going to come from the ear, we're going to come down below the midway of that curve, and we're going to do another curve that comes in a little bit, and it's going to stop. It's going to be this part here. Then we're going to do kind of like a diagonal line. It's going to come up and then come back this way. After we've done that, we're going to do the trunk now. So we're going to come in a little bit from this shape, and we're going to do a curve that just comes out. And then we're going to come from here and do another curve like that. You're going to want to erase this little line here. Unfortunately, I cannot do that because I used a Sharpie. Okay, now I'm going to draw the other edge of my trunk. And usually with an elephant trunk, it starts by being kind of wide, but then it gets, thinner as it comes down. So it's okay if you start out a little bit out here and then just very little angle it so it looks like the trunk's getting smaller as it goes down. I'm also going to come back to this point here where these two lines meet and just kind of curve it up a little. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to do a couple more curves. I'm going to do a curve that comes near and follows the curve of the ear. Another one that kind of comes out, almost looks like a Y, and then a shorter one. These are just some bigger creases that are in the elephant near his kind of like his neck area. All right, and now for the eye, find that trunk and come out. So about from the trunk, not quite near the top so much, but like in the middle, a little bit away from the trunk, you're gonna do an opened V, sideways V. And then you're gonna do a curve with a circle inside. I'm just gonna do a couple curves above that eye and below it for some creases. Okay, so now that we have that done, now what we're going to do is start to go in with some of the charcoal. Now, with the charcoal pencils, it's very important. There are not a lot of these in the room. It's very important that you do not drop them on the floor because it ruins them. And if we run out, we will not have more. You'll notice on here it says HB Hard. There's different types of charcoal pencils. There's medium and soft. The HB Hard is one of the harder ones, which means it's not as messy and it does not spread out as much. So charcoal usually has a darker powdery substance, and what's really cool about it is you can blend it. Now if you pick a hard pencil, they are more for drawing very dark lines. They don't work as well for blending, but because charcoal is a new material for some of us, or a new medium, we are going to stick with the hard because it's not as messy and Sometimes if you start with a medium first or soft, you might not get a feel for it, and it can be hard to control some of the powder and the charcoal. So we're all gonna start with a hard today, just so we get a hang of how it works. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go along that trunk, and I'm just gonna do a nice little charcoal line. And we're basically gonna kind of make it like a shadow in the trunk. So the first couple things we do is we're just gonna be blending. You do not need to hold it by the tip when you do this. See how I kind of angled that a little bit? You're going to get some tissue, and you're gonna kind of fold it into like a little piece here, and you're gonna rub in circles. And then what you're gonna get is like a nice little shadow area on the trunk. We're gonna add some shadows too under here. Same thing. Blend it out. Okay. These little lines we drew near the ear, we're just gonna kind of do the same thing. And the edge of the ear, we're gonna trace the edge of the ear. So we're now gonna blend these. And blend this. Now there are blending tools that you use typically with charcoal, but for this step, since we're just starting out, we are just going to use tissue. So I'm gonna go ahead and build up a little more around the ear for a little more of a shadow. I'm even gonna do a big shadow at the bottom of the ear where it connects with the leg. You don't need to push too hard on that. There we go. So now that we have that, I'm even gonna do a couple shadows near the mouth area. Trace that line there. Blend. And for the eye, friends, really what I'm gonna just do is kind of color that in with the charcoal, but I'm not gonna blend that. If you wanna go in these creases we made and just kind of do like a little bit of a blend. All right, so now we're gonna practice using this to make some lines. If I push really hard with my charcoal pencil, I'm gonna get a pretty thick line. Okay, so in this case, we're not using the edge of it like we did with shading, we're gonna use the tip. But if I push really light, I get a thin line. Now the thing with an elephant is they have variations of lines, some thicker and some skinnier lines. So we're gonna start with some of the thicker lines first, and we're gonna do the thick lines around his trunk. When we do the trunk, we wanna create form and make it rounded. So instead of doing straight lines, we're going to do some curved lines. So I'm gonna go around and they don't all have to be the same. If you wanna go in and blend just a few in a little bit, you can. I wouldn't over blend them. You can even have some that go this way. So these are, from this side, these are going to be curved lines, not straight. And you can, mine are slightly curved, they're not super curved. You can do downwards or upwards. I'm gonna just do some that are a little shorter up as they go up near the eye. Okay, now I'm gonna do a few curved, because again, we want form, we want rounded form, some big curved ones by pushing hard around my leg. All right, so now that I have that, I'm gonna be very loose, meaning I can even hold this bottom of the charcoal so that it's very loose, but I'm noticing the tip of this is really small. These pencil sharpeners have two holes, a smaller and a larger hole. For the charcoal, you are going to use the larger hole, and you're going to press very lightly, not too hard to sharpen. Your pencil will never be as sharp as a regular pencil. Charcoal is going to have a little bit of a more rounded bottom. So now that I have that sharpened, I'm gonna hold this near the end, and I'm gonna push light, because you can always push harder. And I'm gonna just go in. You don't need to blend these ones. I'm gonna do some loose curved lines, pushing very light in both my legs and my trunk. I'm even gonna now do a couple that actually go vertical up and down, but these ones are also gonna be very light lines. If they're too heavy, it will look a little check marky and awkward. I'm gonna go ahead and do some very loose organic ones, meaning they don't really have a direction. Very loose, short, to look like dry skin around his eyes. You can do some medium ones even if you want to try that out. Okay, very loose and organic. And then I'm going to do a couple around his ear that are very loose. So now we're going to get some white charcoal. So this might not show up as much on the gray paper because the gray paper is pretty light for a gray. Obviously the white charcoal, very rarely do you use that on white paper. There's another technique you use for white paper, which we'll talk about in the future. But with the white, we're just gonna add, we're not really gonna blend anything. You can go in and add a little top highlight on your trunk if you want, but we're just gonna add some more lines with that white. Kind of look like maybe, you know, there's some lighter areas on that. All right, friends, and after we do the white charcoal, we're all done.